Think we're live? Well, let's say it looks like we are going to be live. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Boom. And, I think we're up and running now. Well, looks like we're live. Okay. Yep, just checking a little sound there. Okay. All right, everyone. Well, hey, look, this is an impromptu thingy here, something I've been meaning to do for quite some time. Just almost pretty much just like just doing a video for the channel, because I've not really done many of those other than my my previous. Well, I posted a video that was an interview I did in 2019 on my Blog Talk Radio Clobberin Time podcast, of course, with the great, fabulous, magnificent Lord, Almighty Lord Doomcock, the great gentleman who was nice enough to be on with me and do a wonderful interview there. And I love Doomcock. Hopefully I'll have him back on again one of these days. But I want to thank anyone who is here right now. And again, I understand that I did this really unprompted, but I'm just basically sort of filming a video for the channel to be watched later. I won't be on all that long, but I wanted to do something, a day off, and hopefully, we'll, obviously I'll probably do maybe an open show tomorrow night. But live free, Ransom. There you go, buddy. Hey, man. Hey, there you go. All right, good to see you, friend. I thought I would do something. Well, look, man of stool, as I like to call it. But I'm going to be fair. Look, in fact, I'm going to take this thing off here. Spoiler alert, you see this, that I say that Man of Steel sucks. Well, let's put something pleasant up there, like look, let's put something pleasant up there like the Superman family. Because this video is about Superman and why I think the film, The Man of Steel, it is, by, hey, Charles Mackworth, Charlie, brother. Great to see you, my friend, great old friend. I've invited a couple other friends here, but like I say, this will be recorded and it'll go up as a video. It's a short one. I want to talk about a character that I love very much. Good to see you, Mr. Ransom, sir. Oh, man. My good buddy Chris is here. And he is, again, he'll be the counterpoint there. He is a fan of the movie, but we have talked about it. Zack Snyder's Man of Steel from 2013. And again, it's 7 years almost, just to a couple of weeks ago, because was it like June 30th or something along those lines when the film first hit theaters. To give you a little background before I start reading the review, my wonderful, illustrious review that got me into all kinds of trouble, just give you a little history, a little background on the whole kerfluffle. Why is it so important and all that other kind of stuff for those who will be maybe, if not jumping in now, will may see this as a video later. This is going to get me the hate. I only have a few subscribers right now, as you all know, because I've just moved over from my Clobberin Time Blog Talk Radio show of 11 years, 700 episodes of that, for those who don't know. And again, when I did this review, this was again 2013, and on my show, just so you'll know, at the time, remember, not everyone and their sister and their grandmother had a podcast at that point. And so I had, not the greatest, I wouldn't say the biggest audience ever, but I had a nice one. And of course, I had my Facebook group, which is a Clobberin Times Baxter Building Basement. Please join that if you like geek talk and things like that. Around 2011-ish, when the movie Man of Steel was first announced, okay, previously to that, Zack Snyder had directed a film called Watchmen, that some of you may be familiar with. One of my all-time, if not my all-time favorite comic, Watchmen. And I was, I'm well disposed towards it. There are a lot of great things in the film, a lot of things I don't like in Watchmen, in Snyder's Watchmen. I kind of thought he'd hacked it up, and he made a lot of mistakes with it. And he also, I remember in the time leading up to the film's release, the Watchmen, the first one, he was kind of playing footsie with us on the message boards, the big Watchmen fans, telling us he was going to get it right. I got you guys. I'm going to get the ending right and all that stuff. Then he didn't. I kind of, I'm one of those weirdos that thought 300 was at least kind of a fun film. I hated a lot of things he did with Watchmen, but stylistically and visually, it was pretty interesting and it was well done. I got dragged to see Sucker Punch by Snyder by a nephew of mine that I'll never forgive him for. That was a headache inducer right there. But when Zack Snyder was hired, and he's generally a pretty good dude, they say. I mean, even as mad as I am at him about this and BVS, bitch versus shit, bull versus shit, so sometimes call it. Full disclosure, I don't like these things. Seemed like a pretty good guy on balance, from things you hear and even the way he talks sometimes. But the fact of the matter is, when that asshead, yes, he's not perfect. Christopher Nolan is worshipped by a lot of geeks. Christopher Nolan is not perfect. Christopher Nolan made a lot of money for Warner with 3 movies that a guy was occasionally calling himself Batman in. I like Batman Begins okay. I like Dark Knight okay, although it's not my cup of tea necessarily. Dark Knight is a good film. I think it's a bit on the overrated side, but it's okay. But The Dark Knight Retires, in my opinion, is garbage. I liked it a little bit at first, and I kind of it wore on me I don't know, it just didn't grow on me. However, Christopher Nolan was hired to produce. He didn't want to direct. I don't know if he was even approached to direct Man of Steel, and I don't think he was. And if I'm wrong about that, I'm fine. But he's the guy that brought in Hack Snyder. Yes, I'm calling him Hack now because he started becoming a hack. I'm not saying he's not a nice guy. He's a hack. And Snyder, pretty much out front said, he admitted it, and I do not understand. I do not understand this mentality. Maybe if anyone comes across this thing and has some insider knowledge to Hollywood, perhaps you could explain this to me, because it just seems like irrational to me. For example, when Jar Jar Abrams, that piece of garbage, was given the filthy, horrible 2009 Star Trek reboot, he was fully admitted up front, which you got to give him a little credit for, that he didn't like Star Trek. He didn't get Star Trek. Okay. Look, to each his own. If Star Trek is not your bag, if Star Trek is not your bag, fine. If Batman or Superman's not your bag, also fine. But why do you hire someone who comes out and admits, I don't even really like Star Trek? Whatever. Love the Bane character there and Retires. I don't know, man. It was well done. Tom Hardy's a good actor, but I was never a big Bane guy in the comics either, though. So, but he is very different from the comic book version created by Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan. But so Snyder was out there fully up front. It's not like he was lying to get the job. He said he didn't like Superman. Hey, I love Superman, but it's fine if you don't like him. Opinions are great and they're fine. I have no problem with it, but at the same time, if I'm hiring a guy and he admits to me, I don't really like I'm not into the character or anything, I'd say, oh, that's cool. We'll hire someone who does have it. Look, Richard Donner, for God's sake. I mean, he grew up caring about the character when he directed the brilliant masterpiece, Superman, the movie for the 1978 release, leading up to that. And he said, and in his own words, he believed that Superman should be treated with respect. And that's why you got such a wonderful movie, the first Christopher Reeve film, Superman the movie. And of course, Superman 2, I got a lot of problems with. I hate the Lester cut, but I like the Donner cut pretty well. Oh, well, Paulie, great to see you, my friend. I understand. Like I said, it was an impromptu thing here. I'm going to get to reading my review in a minute, but I'm just giving it a setup about why I hate Man of Steel so much. But good to see you, my friend. Thank you for popping in, man. But Richard Donner respected the character and it showed and proved it. Idiots like Jar Jar Abrams, who admits he doesn't like Star Trek and they give him the goddamn job anyway, and now Hack Snyder comes along because of Christopher Nolan wants him to do it, and he admits he doesn't like Superman. Well, this is what you get. You have Batman Begins, which I like. Again, I like Dark Knight. Okay, Dark Knight Retires, I don't like, but you make you don't need the Christopher Nolan slant. Who, by the way, Christopher Nolan didn't really care much about Batman either, which it shows. If you look at Dark Knight Retires, that movie really doesn't give a shit about Batman. It's just, it's not a Batman film as far as I'm concerned. Really, the other two, I don't know. At least Batman Begins gives lip service to the character. And let's see. By the way, today on featuring quotes that are wrong in every sense of the word, we got this one from my good buddy Chris. Henry Cavill is the best Superman ever and probably always will be. I'll agree with that statement, except for the fact that it's wrong because Christopher Reeve is. So other than that, man, other than being wrong and Christopher Reeve being the greatest Superman, and I love George Besselo and a couple other ones too. I I really like Cavill. This won't be a dump on Cavill fest at all. And I think he could be a good Superman if you ever got a chance to play him. So to be fair, you're not entirely wrong. It's just that Cavill never got a chance to play Superman. Whereas Christopher Reeve played him in one great film and played him in 3 bad movies, but he still played him brilliantly even in the bad movies. So no one could touch Christopher Reeve. So that's all right, man. You're good. So, Man of Steel is an abomination because Zack Snyder did not care about Superman. That's really pretty much what it was. He put his own idiotic nihilism and objectivism in the film because let me tell you something. Superman is not just a character who can fly and move mountains, planets in some cases, depending upon your era of preference for the character. Superman is his values. He's an icon. When you strip away the values and turn him into a whiny little brat millennial who just happens to have superpowers, he's not Superman anymore. And that's the one thing I'll almost give this film. They only call him that twice, and they begrudgingly even say the word Superman, which is good because this movie does not deserve to use the word Superman. Reeves is cliche. I don't know why he's cliche. He exists. A person can't be a cliche, man. And of course, he's the best. And is Superman. Yeah. But I'm being fair to Cavill. He never got a chance. Cavill gets a good chance. He won't be as good as Reeves, but he can be good. 2 hours of amazing theater experience. I'll agree with that. Before I get into the review, I'll just say this, that building up to it for 2 years, I was under assault. Anyone who dared criticize any new information that came out about Man of Steel got called a hater and all these names. And again, we were just reacting to the things we kept seeing. Or for example, early on, how shitty the costume was. The shitty body condom that poor old Henry Cavill was forced to wear. Absolutely disgusting costume. A lot of the dark bullshit we kept seeing from pictures and trailers and things. And stupid shit coming out of the mouth of that asshead moron, Hack Snyder. To say he's the best is not a cliche. There's some people that don't agree with it. To say he's the best is a heartfelt belief. Remember, it's an opinion. An opinion is not. It probably seems cliche in the sense that it's a widely held opinion, but it's not a cliche. And he is the best. Again, opinion. You should never really have to clarify when you say something is the best. For example, if I say chocolate ice cream is the friggin' best. Well, except for Target S'mores ice cream, which is crack to me. That's an opinion, because you might eat it and say, it sucks, that Target S'mores ice cream, you fucking fat idiot. What's wrong with you? And I'd say, well, I'm old and I have no taste anymore. However, if I'm happen to be standing next to a car and say, this is a car, that's not an opinion. It's just a fact. If I say Christopher Reeve is the best Superman, it's an opinion. And if it's a cliche, sometimes things are cliched because they're true, by the way. Just saying. An actual cliche can be true, by the way. Whoop, a fact. So, I'm going to read my review and try to make it as quick as possible with the review. This is the review. Again, leading up to the film, a lot of my friends said, I'm not going to see or support that crap. So much so, the day that it came out, everyone was saying, you're not really going to go see that shit, are you? Oh, I know. Dude, I know. I know you know. I know you know. It's always good with you, my friend. And yes, I'm an opinionated sumbitch. Okay, Henry played Superman for a few minutes in that stupid Justice League movie with his CGI face. That is true. I remember, I've always said that. And as bad as Justice League is, he actually does get to play Superman. But I mean so I'm basically meaning for a whole film. I'd like to see him get a chance to play him for a whole film where he wears a good costume and stuff. I'd like to see that for Henry Cavill. And he would too, from what I hear. So, I am going to start reading my review. Of, what the hell? Oh, whoop, I knew I forgot something. Sorry about this. I'm still new at this crap, folks. There we go. There's my damn review. Not that you can see it much, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm going to read it on the other screen there. No kidding, man. The mustache thingy. Woo. So this is me in 2013. Now, bear in mind, my friends, if you're still here. If you're not, look, I understand. And again, spoiler alert. Look, if you're a fan of this film, I'm not trying to start a fight. I'm going to get the hate because there are two. I forgot to mention, a lot of people hated my guts because I trashed the film and they take things personally. I promise you that even if I really, really love something and you trash it and hate it, I won't take it personally and I won't hate you and certainly won't hurl invectives. I had videos, true story, I had videos made about me by one idiot because he was pissed off at me not liking the movie. Like I'm anybody. I'm nobody. I do a silly podcast. Now I don't even have that anymore. I have a YouTube channel with 51 lovely subscribers, and that's it. I'm a fat old fool who does nothing but a geek. And I write about things on my page. Boo friggin' who. But look, it triggered this one bitch nut job kept making videos about me and my group. And other people, man, I got a lot of hatred. People left the group. People were pissed. I got called all kind of names before the fucking film came out even. And then later, when it came out and I trashed it, even worse. But I even got a good friend of mine who called me that morning, as I was telling you. And it's hilarious. I could hear his voice now. Good buddy of mine. Because he was of the ones, look, don't go support this bullshit. Don't watch it. And I was like, look, dude, I've been talking shit about this thing, things we've been seeing about it in the press for 2 years. I can't not go see it. You can't intelligently comment on anything if you didn't, once it's released. I mean, it's one thing to comment on the trailers and the info. I have no problem with that. There are people that didn't like that either. However, if you're going to comment on it, once it's out there, you can't unless you watch it and review it. And so I went the first night to get it over with. I couldn't get anyone to go with me. Not that I wanted them to. My dear friends with Retro Blasting, who's a wonderful channel here on YouTube, also the wonderful Michael and Melinda, they were doing a contest or something in conjunction with the film at the time. So as much as they didn't want to, they went to see it and also in solidarity with me, which I appreciate. So he calls me and goes, you better not be going to see that shit tonight, that crap. You better not be. And I said, dude, I got to. Why, man? He goes, I said, look, if I found a download or something and just could watch it, okay. But I couldn't. So, what are you going to do? I had to go watch it and be honest. So I did. So here's my stupid review for what it's worth, and granted, not much. But I'm gonna start reading, and I'm gonna try to go quick here. This is me, remember, talking to right after coming out of it, very passionately writing this thing and talking to a 2013 audience 7 years ago. And so to keep it in that perspective, I'll comment on it a little bit. So I wrote it like this. It's early December 1978 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Red Stick. I add some things sometimes. A 14-year-old kid goes to the cinema with his family to see Superman the movie. Ballpark December, by the way. It's foggy exactly when we got it released here, but it was about that. A life forever altered, if you can call it a life. I've been told to get a life plenty of times, and after this, I would be told it a lot more. For close to a decade leading up, up to this. Oh man, I still left words out. I suck. Oh. The kid that I'm referring to, because we all know this is a big secret. Reveal who this kid is. Yeah, the kid's love for the world's first superhero was growing exponentially over the years, by leaps and more than a single bound. starting with Lou Scheimer's Filmation Superman and Superboy cartoons in the 60s at a very young age, which led to comics, which steered him back to TV with the Saturday morning Super Friends cartoon at the outset of the 1970s. That was probably like 72-ish or 3, actually, if I remember right. And, of course, somewhere in there, reruns, although they weren't known as such to this kid at the time, of The Adventures of Superman, starring the great George Reeves. Really, George Besselo is his real name. As any child of the Bronze Age of comics knows, who read DC, there were ads in and eventually on all DC Comics titles for years leading up to the film's release. There have been few films that the kid was ever more excited to see in his life, before or since, and fewer still that lived up to his lofty expectations. Once that fateful night arrived, that kid who loved the guy with the red and blue costume experienced Christmas a few weeks early, when the big red S blasted onto and practically off of. I suck and my eyesight sucks, everyone. My apologies. Old, fat, and stupid, there's no excuse. Old, fat, and stupid is no way to go through life, son. Paraphrase Animal House. Practically off the screen. To that brilliant John Williams main theme, when those brightly white and blue words whizzed by, telling us the names of the cast, the kid knew his life would never again be the same. It would be geeky, dorky, and pathetic, but it wouldn't be the same again. The same again. Is that good English or grammar? Who cares? I see it in comic books all the time, so screw it. Blame Stan Lee. It was probably the single greatest cinematic experience of his silly life. Yes, I editorialized a little bit. This has been 7 years. I'm going to knock myself as much as the film. He went back nearly 20 times over the course of the film's initial release, probably 18 total, but it could have been more. Memory tends to haze over time. Anyway, that kid, me, as if you already hadn't guessed already, has loved the Man of Tomorrow all of my goddamn bloody life. The point? Just full disclosure, for anyone who wonders why I'm somewhat displeased and unsettled by a certain movie's treatment of that legendary, beloved, iconic hero. Yes, Superman is very important to me. And I take a dim view of anyone who mistreats and disrespects him. I know that I am not alone in this. I have many friends who have loved the world's first and greatest superhero as much as I have all of their lives. Unlike no other superhero, this one has touched so many. In so many ways for 75 years. We all know we're past the 80 mark now. It is not only fitting that arguably the most powerful superhero ever created in fictional terms, I know that varies by the version and the era, would also be the most powerful in real terms. That is, in terms of his profound influence on pop culture. I guess that goes with being number one. One of my favorite things about being a geek is that amazing pocket universe all geeks are blessed with. That plane of existence that only we can control. That private dimension where we make the rules and we play God. It's located, of course, between our ears and directly connected to our hearts. No one else can tell us what to do there or what to accept there. If we don't like it, we can chuck it out the door. We can't control what is done to the characters we love by the cold, heartless corporate ghouls, the wretched, empty suits who own them by crook or dishonorably in most cases, sadly, but that's some comic book history for another time. But we can damn sure pick and choose what we will embrace and what we will discard in terms of canon or iteration. I call it geekverse filter, for lack of a better term, or for lack of a geekier term, if there is one. Now the little background is set, and I thank you for your indulgence. Let's talk about the latest alleged attempt to bring Superman back to the big screen. Zack Snyder's film, or Zack Snyder films are always pretentious, pompous, overblown, arrogant messes. Just look at his over-the-top cantfest Watchmen. A triumph in style over substance, visually alluring, and yet a textbook case of missing the point on a grand scale. 300, never mind. Yeah, it was fun at least. Then there was his excruciatingly skull-crushing sucker punch. Please don't ask me how I got dragged to that one. Ugh. Those films so lack in subtlety that they make Michael Bay's crap fest look like Merchant and Ivory Productions. With Man of Steel, as I endearingly call it, no, endearingly to some, Mr. Snyder, under the command of producer Christopher Nolan, who made tons of money for Warner Brothers with the character undeservedly going by the moniker of Batman in 3 films. I'll backtrack that a little bit. I mean, the first 2, I like the first 2. I mean, it's not really all that pure Batman, but, Nolan didn't care much about the character anyway. He had said, and I know, look, Nolan is a god to a lot of geeks. Not me. I like some of his stuff. Not the biggest fan of his, but anyway. But a bit of awareness, I'm sorry. Has decided that it was time to retell, in quotes, Superman's origin. Because as we all know, there was a great need for that. I get the impression that it was really little more than an excuse to show off yet again his cold, crass visual style by giving Krypton, a new look and filling our eyes with lavish alien set pieces and spectacular CGI backdrops. Why? Because it'll look awesome. Why else? Because it'll look awesome. Yeah, it'll look great. Yeah, it'll look cool. Then look like Krypton. Look, I should interrupt here and say, look, I was never the biggest on the... It took a while for me to get used to Crystal Krypton in Donner's film. And it was more fan of the old Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon Krypton of the comics, but that's just me. But again, of course, that's what a comic book geek does sometimes. That said, I can't stand Snyder's Krypton. It looks cool as an alien world. It just, Pandora, Barsoom or something like that, I suppose. But it doesn't work for Krypton. For me, a minor point, but just not my bag. Don't like it. Didn't like any of that Krypton crap. Why, but it'll look awesome. Why else? Will it add anything to Superman's origin? Will it make it better now that it's been rehashed for the umpteenth time? And that was the thing. I'm interrupting my. I didn't really think Superman's origin needed to be dwelled upon again and redone. Now, again, this was 2013. They had just got over the big lawsuit. And that's why, now the reason why the film had to be rushed into production was because DC and Warner were having a big lawsuit for the longest time with the heirs of Jerry Siegel, the writer and creator of Superman. Even with the Schusters, not as much. I think Schuster, there was something going along with there too, but I think it was with Jerry Siegel's heirs, and they had to get a movie in there. And they had to have it by 2013. Jobber's here. Good to see you there, man. Sorry if I don't see you guys all the time. I'm reading my silly review here. Yeah, I'm with you there, Jobber. I'm on that for sure. Okay, so yeah, why? Again, this is just me now. This is not necessarily the biggest of criticisms of the film. I just didn't think we needed 5 hours on Krypton, especially that Krypton. But I just didn't think we needed that much of any of the origin rehashed. To be honest, everyone knows Superman's origin, but a lot of this was I don't know. Some of it, you could be said, was to do with the big lawsuit. They wanted to get out there, and again, they had to have a film made by 2013. And it's a complicated, ridiculous mess with that lawsuit. I can't really get into it right now. Yeah, I guess Nolan and clueless screenwriter David Goyer and Snyder thought so. They, in other words, thought it was great to rehash the origin again. Oh, well. And spend lots of time on this FX Paradise planet because, well, like we said, it'll look cool. And we'll feel like we're in a massive science fiction epic, and it'll look cool. And it'll be epic. And it'll fill up a lot of time. And, oh, did I mention that it'll look cool? In the meantime, amongst all of the gobbledygooks, gobbledygook, I can't even say that word right. I'm old and stupid. I'm an idiot. See, these people who hate me, I'm already insulting me. There's no insult you can hurl that could possibly do anything but bounce off. And I'm bouncy that way. I'm bouncing boy. Gobbledygook swung back and forth between Jarrell and Zod. Ugh. God, that part. Oh, my Jesus, God. We get to see things that look really cool, though. Hey, let's keep that in mind. After we get all the nifty, hip, new science fiction revisions to Superman's Kryptonian origins, which are in no way convoluted, complicated, or pretentious. Oops. There's that word again. How pretentious of me. We don't have to ask questions like, if Krypton's High Council agrees with Jor-El that the planet is doomed, unlike the, I guess, way less cool previous origins in which they always thought he was just being a nervous Nelly, why don't they look like they give a shit? Because they don't. If you remember in the film, they're not arguing with Jor-El. They go, yeah, man. There's what's this planet called again? Pandora, Kryptonia. Yeah, you're right, dude. It's about to blow up. Bummer. Maybe we should do something about that someday. Yeah, right. Originally, Jor-El was on his own, and none of the other Kryptonians, except for Lara, believed him about the impending destruction of Krypton, and thus, we're not prepared as well. Boom. We're not prepared as well. Boom. Now that they know they are toast, and well, win some, lose some, boom, you're going to blow up anyway. I mean, the High Council just pretty much said, yeah, shame about that. Too bad we're going to blow up. Boom. I don't know. Just so fucking stupid. Oh, this movie's so bad. So horribly written by goddamn idiots. And don't bother asking questions about why Kryptonians have no free will. Then, if they have no free will, then how did Jor-El and Lara come up with the quaint, revolutionary idea of having the first natural childbirth in generations? And why did they send Kal-El away from Krypton if they are a society of genetically engineered drones in the first place? Somewhere Harlan Ellison is groaning. This was back before the great Harlan Ellison had passed away, but I can see him reviewing this thing. He may have reviewed it. I don't know. Tearing it to pieces, and I could be wrong. I know he wouldn't like this piece of shit. He understood Superman. But he would have probably been all over it. So let me continue with this thing so I can get it over with, and Jesus. Oh, and don't forget, flying dragon things look cool. This entire film, in accordance with Mr. Snyder's MO, is overwrought and underthought. After the big boom, we finally get to go to Earth 4,000 hours later. Yeah, some of the stuff I didn't write in 2013. I'm editorializing, adding my own snarky bullshit. Sorry, not sorry, as the kids say. Because there, these sterile, colorless aliens can have superpowers, and that's always cool. Granted, rough on the furniture, but not good for business. Another good thing about leaving Krypton is that the obnoxious Hans Zimmer score ringing in our ears may settle down on the less spectacular Earth. Zimmer does fine work, and I guess his minimalist, understated, moody music fits the tone of this turgid, relentlessly downbeat movie well enough. And more to say, Zimmer is excellent on a lot of things. And his Superman part of the theme, while good music, not really John Williams type of inspiring. But I like Zimmer. I mean, it's a good soundtrack. I mean, look, I never, even in really bad movies, if there's a good score, I'll always single it out and say it's good, even if it doesn't do anything for the film. But it's good stuff. No question about it. And it's not John Williams, but who is? Even Goldsmith couldn't get close to Williams all the time. Oh, no, he did some great stuff. Some parts of the film were based on Mark Waid's Birthright, which I did not like. A lot of people like it. I don't know. A miniseries from about 2 or 3 origin revamps ago in the comics, if I recall. Maybe not that many. Actually, actually, I think was one. It was the one before last. Didn't care much for Birthright personally, but I am a fan of much of Wade's older work. Jackass though he, and really bad person though he is, just not this one. Anyway, on to Earth. 3 hours later. Well, not that long. It just felt that long to me. I'll give Snyder some credit. At least we get a slightly different narrative for the recap of Clark's life. In terms of the usual flow of superhero origin films, in terms of the flow of usual flow of superhero origin films, sorry. Using flashbacks and a non-linear pattern was a decent idea in this case. If you're going to rehash Clark's early life, at least be quick about it. And they seem to be about to do that. But, well, it just didn't go that way, though, did it? At some point, this is supposed to feel like a Superman movie, right? At least in tone? Nah. Let's just plod along and try to keep up with new ways to revise his beginnings, because that's always fun. I know. Instead of a Fortress of Solitude, guess the Fortress concept isn't hip enough for Supes anyway, which granted, Superman, Fortress of Solitude was stolen from Doc Savage, for those who don't know. Clark Savage Jr. does predate Superman, and he had a Fortress of Solitude before Superman was using the name for his wonderful Arctic refuge. Let's just have him find an ancient Kryptonian spaceship. That will work better than that dusty old fortress thing. What kind of a dork would have one of those? Yeah, it's not cool. It's better to have a spaceship from Krypton for some reason. And let's make a ghostly computer recreation of Jor-El, a recurring character. That's a nice twist. Russell Crowe will be annoying us throughout the film. Thank you. And he'll collect his little paycheck. Yeah, he thinks he's modern day Brando. I don't know. It'll certainly give us a good mouthpiece for exposition. Who needs thought balloons? And it'll also be good for some screen cred if we pay a big name actor like Crowe to sleepwalk through this mess. I can actually hear the wheels turning inside Goyer and Snyder's useless heads. Yeah, we'll update and slick this silly comic book stuff up so the cool kids will dig it. Yeah, by the way, for the record, I'm just being an ass. I don't think they really said that. They probably, the word think is kind of stretching it. They probably think that way. So in all of this tiresome drudgery, we get Lois conveniently finding the ship. What a time saver. And finding out who Clark Cal is, another time saver. Thus putting any of the classic daily planet chemistry sorta mystery behind Clark and Lois out to pasture. We're in a hurry, you see. We got kind of carried away wasting time on crypto, whatever you call it. After all, and we need to get on with it. We got buildings to smash. We got people to kill. Now it's time for some more woe is me Clark time. And that we get. The whole underlying theme of this film is Pandora. Excuse me. I'm obsessed with Pandora for some reason. I will start again. The whole underlying theme of this film is paranoia and cynicism. Let me say that again. The underlying theme of Man of Steel is not hope and optimism, which are great classic Superman iconic traits. It's paranoia and cynicism. That's what it is. Fear is the key. Fear is the message. But we'll get back to that in a bit. Firstly, let's go through a bit more of the dreary goings on in this cinematic downer. Clark's life was one of loneliness, a life of a freak and an outcast, something that he did struggle with in early years, for sure, in legit Superman canon, probably much whichever one you prefer, but the Kents never let it get to him. They were great motivators and voices of encouragement and support, kind of the point about the whole story. They wanted to keep his abilities on the down low to an extent, but Not to the degree that Paul Costner, paranoid conspiracy kook extraordinary, does in this film. Indeed, Legitkins taught Clark to be proud of who he was, not ashamed of it, not afraid of it either. They taught him values, not cynicism. Values, that's what the Kins were about. Teaching him, that's why he turned out to be the man he is. Superman is not about the powers, it's about the values. He's nothing, those powers are nothing without the values behind him. Which people, idiots like Hack Snyder and David Snot Goyer do not understand. That's why this film is so horrible. They taught him principles of decency, not isolation and despair. Sure, they wanted him to keep his powers a secret when possible in his early life, but never, and I mean never, at the expense of human lives. Never. The Kents are supposed to be Clark's moral compass, not the voice of his inner turmoil, not the voice of his self-doubt. But this is what you get when you try and ground a fantasy concept like Superman in reality, quote unquote, in quotes. It simply doesn't work. Square peg, round hole. Not for Superman. It runs counter to what the character is all about. As defined not only by his creators, but by others who refined and wrote him all over the years before he was destroyed of late. Snyder, Goyer, and even Henry Cavill have bandied that word, reality, about a lot when discussing their take on the Superman, on the character in question, not Superman, really. Well, they certainly went in that direction, but that's the problem. That's the biggest problem with this movie. Superman is not supposed to be realistic. He is the ultimate fantasy hero. This is not Watchmen. Which, ironically, Snyder was supposed to be a realistic, Watchmen was supposed to be realistic and wasn't, because you went in the opposite direction. You transposed Superman with Watchmen. Can you read, Snyder? And I'll stop on that point just to make that, to bandy it about for a second. Snyder added a bunch of stupid camp shit to Watchmen, which otherwise looked very good. Visually was very spot on, but he added a bunch of stupid campy shit and ruined the ending. The darkness works for Watchmen. It's what it is. It's about deconstructing. It's about deconstructing superheroes. Superman is the polar opposite of deconstructing superheroes. Is what superheroes are all about. He's not supposed to be a downer, not Superman. And by the way, I am nowhere near the only one who was saying this in 2013. I'm in the minority on some of my opinions, and which is fine. I was in the overwhelming majority. The film did not do all that well, and there were tons of reviews after I did mine, many on YouTube and videos, by the way, that said all of these things. Superman's supposed to be fun. This movie was a downer. Superman never acts like Superman. The values aren't there. Not the only one. This is not revolutionary, folks. And I'm not sitting in a basement. If I had a basement, I would be sitting in it, though. Being the only one out here trashing this movie, I've been in the minority trashing some films before, and on my own, and I still do it. I was in the pretty big majority on this one in 2013, and a lot of water has gone under the bridge for 7 years, but most people, pretty much revile this thing. There does have its fan base, and including my good friend Chris, who's out there, and other friends, I'll just say, my good friends Matt and Flash, when they did the show with me, when this thing came out, the first 2 shows I did, both 3-hour shows, were with 2 friends on 2 different nights who don't agree with me on this film that like it. If anyone cares to know that. And we had a counterpoint. I hate it. They like it. And we're good friends. And we had a fun conversation. Then the next night, my wonderful retroblasting friends joined me on the show. And we did 3 shows that week. They hate it like I did. They hated it as much. And we beat the hell out of it. But I'm fair to the film, and that anyone who has opposing views, perfectly fine. But this little snippet that I just got done with kind of gives you a basic outline of why I hate the film. My basic, not just because I think it's a bad movie, I do, but it's because of what it does to Superman, the character, and his values. And I will read on. And as the whole lonely Clark take bullshit, excuse me, and as to the only, or excuse me, the whole lonely Clark take bullshit, he struggled with those things early on, but as said, the Kents helped him overcome those issues by the time he reached his late teens. Even before that, in my own personal canon, in which, a favorite canon, I should say, in which he became Superboy and not only had a superpowered Kryptonian dog, but made many trips to the 30th century to hang out with a bunch of other superpowered kids called the Legion of Superheroes that I love very much. Superman, even whether it's the continuity where he was Superboy that had a wonderful, wonderful life with the Kents and the Legion and Crypto, or the ones in the other iterations of Origins where he just grew up as a young Clark, had a wonderful life in Smallville in a wonderful, powerful, positive light. It's why he came out to be the wonderful, shining light superhero that he is. Clark Kent's upbringing was crucial to the evolution of the character and his moral foundation. But moral clarity and principles don't interest Nolan, Snyder, or Goyer and their ilk at DC Warner, obviously. They prefer neurosis, or, put another way, it's all just an excuse to, as they say these days, go emo. They did say that back then. I don't know if they say emo anymore, but this is 2013, an eon ago, to go emo on us. Because that's what most screenwriters in quotes, love to project onto their heroes in quotes in today's whiny, wimpy poop culture. They think, and again, MCU wasn't doing that, by the way. I'm just singling out mostly DCAU, so I could have been maybe over generalizing too much on that, because it's not all of them, but it's been done. So bad on me. They think that's what sells. Maybe they do. And I suppose, sadly, they're correct. Again, not really, because it didn't sell. Again, that was me over-projecting, because Man of Steel did not do all that great. But that doesn't make doing it right and doing it to Superman and therefore transforming into the antithesis of Superman the right thing to do. It makes it the wrong thing to do, but, what are you going to do? I'm well aware that there are many who went to see the movie and loved this approach. That's a shame to me, but unlike the Superman ideal itself, the inexplicable love of this interpretation by some of my good friends out there is the sad reality. For me. Not a tragedy, not the end of the world. It's just kind of sad. I wrote that in 2013. Yeah, I don't like it. It's sad, but again, we'll be okay. I got through 7 years, and I'll get through 7 more, maybe. Of course, I am old. Could drop any second, but we'll see what happens. I'm sure that anyone listening now wishes I would go ahead and drop. If it's anything like 2013, with all the hate I got for it, you're probably wishing that now. Anyway, there is nothing that I can say here that will change that, or that will alter that perception amongst the fans who are okay with this take on, i.e., deconstruction of Superman. I have to learn to deal with that, and I'm working on it. I bear no malice towards those who differ on the movie. I just find it more than a bit sad and odd that so many of the film's defenders have taken personally the criticisms from those who don't share their opinions. I disagree with him, but my beef is with the guys who put this travesty on the screen, not other fans who defend it or like it. Even in 2013, see, that's what I say. I was saying that, and I say it, I continue to believe that. There are some fans that disagree with me who are live and let live about it, about my views, and I appreciate them very much. And we can all have good fun. Look, I try to inject fun into my distaste for the film, so we can kind of remember we're talking about a movie and not some of the horrible things going on in the world today. Talking about a movie, and I seriously approach it with the review in a sense. It's still a movie. There are far too many fans. This was at the time, now in 2013, that I wrote this. There are far too many fans who are belligerent towards those of us who hate it on all levels. Those of us who hate it on all levels, particularly for what it does to the Superman character and his ideals. In a way, that belligerence is ironic. However, that irony will no doubt be lost on the fans. I'm talking about. Sadly, there seems to be a disturbing number of them out there who will be angry with my take and lash out with bile. And boy, did it happen! And vitriol. Jesus God, did it happen? I was like, yeah, really? Okay, I hated the movie and all, and I trashed it, but Jesus, I didn't stop anyone from going to see it. They started months ago, as I wrote. If you dared express truthful, honest reservations about the film, this is before it came out, based on lots of pertinent advanced info, you were being unfair, and much more insulting terms were slung by those on the strangely hypersensitive defensive. A shame, but if any of you feel that way, look inside yourself and ask why. I don't judge, I merely question. The real issue, for me anyway, about this movie is not whether it is entertaining, although it should be obvious by now that it was not in any way enjoyable for me. Not one bit. In fact, it was one of the very worst movie experiences of my life. I was not happy, actually. And actually, I wanted to get up and leave a few times. There have been zillions of horrid Superman comics, especially over the past 27 years. And for this fan, only one great Superman movie. So I can handle a bad alleged Superman film. What I can't handle is the bastardization of the world's greatest superhero out in the public eye for all to see. That's the true issue for me. I guess we could call this next bit, what would Superman do? Not that for damn sure. There are just two ways about it for me. No Zod math, please. Superman does not appear in this movie. I'll just say about Henry Cavill that I have no real problem with him. As a matter of fact, over the years, this is me now at 7 years in, I actually really like the guy. I'm really a fan of Henry Cavill. It's funny because I don't like him in this role, although in Justice League, idiot movie though it is, he's, as I've said, he gets to show what he can do when he plays Superman for real. Just it's not in the movie enough. And in that, listen, we won't talk about the CGI'd face. But I really do like the guy because he's come out and defended fans over things. And I consider it, in a sense, a defense of me when he came out and said, look, when they've tried to bait him into trashing fans over the years, and Cavill said, oh, hey, look, fans are passionate about these things. And I think it's because he's a fan of things. And he and I may not see eye to eye on what Superman should be. He may be still totally fine with the two movies he did. And fine. I like the guy. I think he's an excellent actor. And, you know, who wouldn't want to look like that for like one day, man? Just imagine all the fun I'd have. Of course, when you look like me, you want to look like anybody else. But, so Cavill's cool. And he's a good actor. He was simply doing what he was told in the film. You know, blah, blah. I went on to say basically a decent film. I said basically that. Because in the film, for me, Superman is written as a cold, brooding, joyless crybaby in a disturbing body condom. That is what we are presented with here. In the scene where he first takes off flying, it's promising. He looks happy. Who wouldn't? But alas, that's about all you're going to get out of Mr. Sad Sack Super Twerp. A few seconds of, hey, I'm flying. Where am I? As if he didn't know he could fly, by the way. Yeah. Why did he know he could fly? Why didn't he just learn it right there? Anyway, but never mind. Cool. And that's it. And by the way, why is it necessary for Super whatever to destroy the ground when he takes off? Because Snyder thought it looked cool in Hancock, I guess. It did look cool in Hancock. But is it necessary in Superman? Well, it was funny. It was funny in Hancock. You know, it was in Hancock. But not a good fit for Supes, but it's okay, I guess. So Superman is nowhere to be found in this movie anyway. What are you going to do? With the expectations of saving the men on the with the exceptions of saving the men on the rig at the beginning of the film, which was cool enough, and the kids on the bus, the rest of the film's build-up or countdown to mayhem consists of scene after scene of non-Clark Kent Superman behavior, such as destroying a guy's truck livelihood in a petty, conspicuous way just because he was a jerk. Even though he was supposed to be keeping a lid on those pesky powers, even though he was supposed to be keeping a lid on those pesky powers and not using them unless absolutely necessary due to the brainwashing of his paranoid conspiracy kook Pappy Paul Costner. But yet he twists the guy's car around telephone poles. By the way, a bit of an overreaction, maybe. I mean, remember, I didn't like it in Superman 2, whether it was Donna or Lester. I thought it was kind of silly when he goes back and deals with the bully later as Clark. But it was still, he just kind of, it was ineffectual. He didn't do anything crazy. It was just kind of silly. And, usually it should have been more along the lines of when Steve Lombard would get his comeuppance by Clark in such a secret way with Clark's superpowers, he never even knew what was happening to him. But, we're not in subtle times, especially 2013 or 2020. Talk about overkill. If he had just pulled some silly prank as payback, fine. But what he did was about like spraying a guy with a machine gun fire for hitting it with a spitball. Not the least bit Superman-like. In fact, downright childish and petty. That's probably Goyer and Snyder for you, I guess. Maybe not. Maybe not Snyder, but Goyer is a jack-off. The boring young Clark scenes don't help matters. I almost got the feeling that the Smallville bits were directed by Nolan while Snyder was on coffee break because they reeked of his minimalist directorial approach. Snyder and Nolan do have distinctively different directorial styles. In my opinion, they do. Again, someone who knows direction will probably correct me, and I don't care. Snyder is water, and Nolan is molasses. And neither ever offer much depth or creativity. And in my opinion, and again, I'm going to backtrack on that a little bit from 2013. Snyder, Snyder's kind of crass, but Nolan can be of depth. I'm just mad at him at this. So that was probably my 2013 anger talking. And he was not creative in this movie at all, though. Whatever small part Nolan played. I have no idea that he directed anything in the movie. I'm just kind of joking around there. And I even added or not since Memento in Nolan's case. Again, maybe, I don't know. I'm not big on this other stuff, but people really like him. And he's popular. I respect him as a filmmaker. I'm just pissed at him for this fucking movie. So nutjob Paul Kastner is so paranoid that he tells Clark that perhaps he should have let a school bus full of kids die. D-I-E, die. Let them die. Let them die. Even when Kirk said that, he didn't really mean it so much. I guess I forget about it. Yeah, edgy stuff and sure to be a hit with the cynics in the audience. Should have let him die or not? Yeah, he says, what's supposed to do? Let him die? Maybe. No. There's no maybe with Paul Kent, not the real one. Not Glenn Ford or any of the other ones. Stuart Whitman played him. Some of the others. Even John Schneider. But I'm not into Smallville. He's so afraid that the world will learn about Clark's powers that he must keep them a secret at all costs, even at the cost of his own life. The convenient moral, quote unquote, dilemma scene manifests itself in the form of a tornado when a cartoon tornado when a grudge against. Okay, let me go back to the way I worded it. Itself. From a tornado, I said cartoon tornado, with a grudge against farmers, apparently, and Paul Costner waves Clark back, and Clark, like a good little drone, obeys, watching his Earth father die right before his eyes, even though he could have saved him in a wink of an eye. After a ripped scene from Raimi's first Spider-Man flick in which Clark pops off at Paul Costner, "You're not my father." Way to dip into the How to Write Angsty Superheroes Handbook, Goyer. Yeah, Goyer, Snyder, Nolan, you guys are edgy. You should have just had Clark fry the bully, in that other scene with the heat vision. Remember the scene with the heat vision with the bully? I should have fried him. What the hell? That would have been bitching. Say I in 2015. These guys either have no respect for the ideals of Superman or no understanding of them. I'm going to go with the former. Because it could be both. But that's just speculation, or possibly the deep, dark, pessimistic tone of the movie infecting my perception. Still, that's speculation based on a lot of evidence, such as their own words from interviews. The point here being Clark Superman would never let anyone die when he could do something about it. Never, all in caps. Never. If you know Superman, never. He doesn't do it. He doesn't do it. Those values are intrinsic to Superman. And when he doesn't follow them, he holds himself accountable and pays the price, as I'll talk about later. But this guy is not Superman. He's just a sad, miserable soul with super strength, but no strength of soul or character. The tornado scene is really the only proof I needed to conclude that this movie was not going to be showing me Superman. All I needed to see to know that Superman, as I and so many others envision him, was going to remain absent from this disaster. Remember the scene in Superman the movie in 1978. Sorry to sully that wonderful classic here, but I must. The scene where Jonathan Kent falls dead of a heart attack comes to mind later. At the funeral, Clark laments, all those things I can do. All those powers. I couldn't even save him. Well-delivered line by Jeff East, even though he was dubbed over by Christopher Reeve. So, well, now we can revamp that line. Cavill could have said, all those things I can do. All those powers. And I wouldn't even save him. Edgy, guys. Edgy indeed. I'm sure you're proud. The movie is replete with examples of the guy in the weird blue wetsuit not acting like Superman. But let's just finish up my final thoughts on the actual events. Blurred, not a Superman pun, across the screen for 2 hours in 28 days, minutes, that is. Okay, so stuff happens and crap gets blown up and buildings tumble by the thousands, and well, there are fights and noises and bodies flung about the chaos and carnage in Hiroshima, Smalltropolis, that is. Sorry, it's just tough to concentrate when all I want to do is forget this nightmare. It's pretty simple. As earlier stated, the underlying theme of the film is paranoia, irrational fear, cynicism, mistrust, and nihilism. None of the true themes endemic to the Superman character and ideal are addressed in this mess of a movie. Integrity, loyalty, friendship, courage, responsible use of power, looking out for the little guy, doing the right thing, compassion for all, perseverance through adversity, good citizenship, friendliness, self-sacrifice, heroism, and many others now sadly outmoded cornball notions that just don't sell to the masses in 2013. Amending that a bit, the movie didn't do well, and MCU did, so I was wrong in saying it doesn't sell to the masses, and I'm glad of it. Nevertheless, they are all absent because, well, those things just aren't cool anymore. Again, amending that, but I wrote this in an anger, and it sure seemed like it at the time. Remember, it was 2013. The MCU had just been getting started and had not shown us, other than the Avengers, that, we were going to get a very positive superhero universe. So that's when I wrote this. So, at least not to. I finished that one with at least not to not to target demo that the empty suits are concerned with. Again, that's of course that's seasonal. Well, where was I? I lost my place for a second. What's wrong with you? All right. The Kents were supposed to instill those values in Clark, but in this movie, they just programmed with self-loathing, self-pity, pessimism, anxiety, and, oh yeah, pettiness, amongst other common modern-day charms that I'm guessing were projected from Goyer's own sad set of emotional issues. Probably Snyder's, too. The movie really never goes anywhere, other than into pointless brutality and crass barbarism. The first hour plus is simply a setup for a long action montage. Now, that would actually not be a problem if handled correctly. A superhero movie should be wall-to-wall action and should be excitement, which it didn't have, even though, sadly, they rarely are. And again, 2013, because we got treated to a lot of great ones, in my opinion, the MCU, to varying degrees, later. You don't really need a complicated story. Just get the characterizations right. Get their look right if you can, or as close as Hollywood will allow to correct. And you're set. Let's have some fun. Fun! That's another thing that Superman is supposed to be about. Fun! But there's no sense of wonder, no spirit of joy, and no celebration of truth, justice, and the American way. Not in this movie. Not in this drear fest. It's just a punching contest between a bunch of arrogant, spoiled aliens with super abilities and a superiority complex to match. It's about which superpowered jerk wins. It's really no more complicated than that. A superhero film should be quite easy to produce, at least in terms of story. Just give them something to fight for. By the way, this was before... this was right after Avengers came out, which showed promise, but we didn't have a spate of Marvel movies to latch onto to go, wow, they really know what they're doing. And they did, for better or worse, and they had their flaws, but they were heroic. They were all those things I wanted out of Superman and didn't get out of him. Just, again, to amend that. 7 years. Just give them something to fight for, a worthy adversary, and some snappy dialogue, and you're ready to go. You won't get a complaint from me. If you can make that happen, you won't get a complaint if you make that happen. I wouldn't even balk too much at the pomposity of your origin setup. If we had with this film, if you have a great payoff, but in order for it to work, you have to get the most important element right, the character. And sadly, that's the biggest thing missing here. If that had happened, if Superman had been accounted for, all of my barbs at the overzealousness and pretentiousness of the early half of the film would still stand, but at least I'd be giving Snyder credit for delivering the goods in terms of superhero adventure. But when you forget to bring the hero and replace him with a vapid, moody dolt who has no clear vision of what his powers truly mean, and no clear idea of what being a hero means, you just end up with yet another cold, loud, messy fistfight. Big deal. It's been done before and done better at that. So the whole thing finishes with an endless string of fights that, as touched upon earlier, result in unspeakable carnage, mindless mayhem, and joyless banality that further caters to the bloodthirsty video game generation, but does little more than give Superman, quote unquote, an excuse to snap Zod's neck. Because we all know that will make him cool, at least to all the fanboys who used to scoff at him for being an overgrown Boy Scout. Well, not anymore. Supes is now officially cool, a badass. Yay. The baseless defense that he had no choice doesn't hold water. He carelessly brawls with the Kryptonians all over the place with staggeringly reckless abandon. But now, all of a sudden, he's concerned about an innocent family, the Brady Bunch. He's worried about them now. Why? Selective, connect the dots morality, it would seem. It would seem. Aside from catching a soldier falling from a helicopter, he never really makes any effort to safeguard bystanders, as Superman always did. But make him have to watch, and he'll jump right on that high horse, not Comet, and unthinkingly kill Zod, of course. It required no thought and was the easy way out. How 2013 of you, and it's maybe 2020 of you in some ways. Who knows? Nolan, Snyder, Goyer. There's no need to go into it anymore. By the way, that killing of Zod, I've read. I don't know if this is true or not. I've read that Nolan, who I'll give credit, doesn't allow Batman to be a killer in his movies. In fact, states in Batman in Dark Knight Retires that Batman doesn't kill. He has Batman say that. And I heard he was against the killing of Zod and got kind of talked into it or cajoled by some of the DC people and Snyder and Goyer. I don't know if that's true or not. It's just something I read somewhere. It may not be true. If so, points to him for that. But he was the producer, so I don't know how much power he had over it. Would have been nice if he didn't let it happen. But again, it's kind of would have been moot. It doesn't matter that he killed Zod. None of the movies Superman anyway. There's no need to go into any more of the movie's content. You all know by now that I think of what I think it is, what I think of it. It's mostly plotless, completely soulless, totally joyless, and utterly heartless. Perfect for those who don't wish to be bothered with all those tedious values that Superman has been boring us with for 75 years. Now 80, over 80. And I call the next segment that I wrote, I headed Not Even Superman. Now, more on the topic that has actually trumped even the arguments over the film's artistic merits or entertainment value or lack of same. The aforementioned Mr. Wade, even Wade, I got a lot of problems with Wade later now, but he was not happy about the Superman crossing the line and the killing. And he's obviously correct. The argument about Superman killing has been bandied about quite a bit, which was to be expected if you put him in a movie and have him kill somebody, even if he's, Or did Nolan and Snyder and Goyer expect it? I've heard that Nolan was against the notion at first, but was talked into it. It's clear that some of my friends who disagree with me on the film are fine with the killing, and I and others like Wade respectfully disagree. There are even some who liked the movie that did not approve of the killing of Zod. So, not everyone is, it's not a clear-cut thing. There's nuance involved. I know it's 2020 and nuance is not in vogue, but there was some, even in 2013. I have a lot of respect for those with this position as well. It's okay. In other words, those of you who defend the film, it's okay to criticize as well. I defend a lot of films that I criticize as well. I have no problem with heroes of other types killing. In real life, soldiers, cops, etc., or in fiction, when it has to be done. From my favorite Western heroes, Paladin the Virginian, Jonah Hex, Dan Troop, Josh Randall, and various John Wayne and Clint Eastwood characters, to spaceship captains, like the great James T. Kirk, Malcolm Reynolds, hey, John Sheridan, others, John Crichton, he's sort of a captain, yeah. From cops, he was a colonel, sorry. From cops like John McClane, Martin Riggs, and Harry Callahan, to private eyes like Sam Spade, Philip Marlowe, Jim Rockford. Actually, I don't think Rockford ever killed, but you know what I'm saying. Go with it. Thomas Magnum, he did. Whew. Joe Mannix, secret agents like James Bond, John Drake, Derek Flint, John Steed, Emma Peel. To adventurers like Indiana Jones and Alan Quatermain, and fantasy heroes like Conan John Carter, Tarzan, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, and so on. The list goes on and on. The point being, heroes do kill when they must. Because that was a big argument going on back then, if you're wondering why that was such a big bugaboo. Because people saying, like, heroes kill, yeah. Even early Superman adventures in the Golden Age, it happened. but it wasn't. It was golden age and it was later changed. Superheroes are a bit different, however. Superman and other superheroes are different from the heroes of other genres. They are fantasy representations of heroic ideals. Superman stories are allegories about the responsible use of power, usually at their best anyway, in my opinion. Beings with superpowers should be held and hold themselves to a different standard. Is this some kind of unwritten rule? No, I suppose not. However, I think it's worthy of one. Since he's the father of the superhero myth, and also the reason for this discussion, let's just keep this mostly about Superman. Mark Waid is reputed to be one of the industry's leading experts on DC Comics history. Jackass though he is. And he's just a vile creature, but this was 2013 when I wrote this. I didn't know that. And of course, a well-established writer of comics, which is still true, older ones, for many years. Superman is truly near and dear to his heart, if he has one. Debatable, as he is so many of us, to so many of us. It is not with malice or bad will that I write this piece. Not even for those who produced the film, though. Though I do have a big problem with them for what they did. Still, this is not intended to lash out at those who have openly stated that they have no problem with Superman killing. You chose to defend Man of Steel on those grounds. That is perfectly fine for Superman. That is for Superman to kill his enemies. Excuse me. You who chose to defend Superman or Man of Steel, rather, on the grounds that it's perfectly fine for Superman to kill his enemies are not my enemies, nor do I have any animosity for you. I simply do not agree. I've loved Superman. I've loved superheroes all my life. Actually, my favorite character is Ben Grimm, the ever-loving blue-eyed thing. Superman's my number two, believe it or not. But that's just the favorite thing. Superman's still the greatest. I love the concept of these power fantasies that pose questions, the likes of which can really only be posed by this genre. A simple, uncomplicated series of questions about good versus evil and the abuse of power. In these tales of brightly clad adventurers, flights of fancy, we can ask, what if someone could do all those amazing, impossible things? What would a good person do with those powers? And yes, what lines, if any, be drawn for someone with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men and women? Wow, and that was 2013. Look how PC I was. Well, I believe that over the course of Superman's early career, when the concept of the superhero was still new as a genre, at some point it was reasoned that someone with extra-normal abilities should be held to a higher standard. This certainly didn't happen overnight, no. There were incidents early on in the genre's infancy in which some of these superheroes did in fact kill, no question about it. Not being in Wade's class as a comic book historian, I am not exactly sure when it became part of the superhero idiom that those with these astonishing powers should not allow themselves to take a life, no matter what the provocation. I'm sorry that I cannot give you specifics with regards to when or if an edict was adopted. The fact is, I doubt that it was ever formally ratified at all. My guess is that it could have been as a result of an editorial decision and became later baked into the cake of writing superheroes, I could say. Who knows? And yet, it isn't unwritten. It has been written dozens of times about dozens of characters, even about Batman. In my favorite cinematic Bat adventure of them all, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, when good old Jim Gordon says, the Batman does not kill, period. Even in Nolan's Batman movies. He doesn't kill and actually rescues the Joker. And at one other point says to Catwoman, no killing. It's good enough for Batman. Well, you get the point. Batman shouldn't kill. Doesn't mean he doesn't accidentally do it. And yes, before you start on the Michael Keaton Batman killing people in a couple of movies. He did, yes. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. No, yeah, I'm not saying it never happens. It doesn't mean I approve of it. My preferred Superman mythos, the one that I truly value the most, personally, is the one that spans 1938 to 1986, although there are differences in those as well. In the Swan Song, no pun, for the Silver Bronze Age Superman legend, sorry. No good at reading. I've never read I've never read the video on the stream before. Sorry. So I'm sorry, folks. It sucks. I apologize. If you're staying with me, I do appreciate it. And if you're mad at me, I even appreciate that. Alan Moore's masterpiece, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. That was, of course, Alan Moore right before the John Byrne reboot, which I'm not a fan of, came along and ended my beloved Superman era. Anyway, I continue. Sorry, I wrote a sorry to my good friend, Mr. Dom, my friend, but I love it. I do love that Alan Moore book. Superman does cross the line, by the way. This might shock you. This is one of my all-time favorite. This is my all-time favorite Superman story. He does cross that killing line. That's right. He does. I should divert for just a bit to address one of the more inaccurate accusations hurled at anyone who makes the case that if you don't like the fact that Nolan, Goyer, Snyder got their mitts on the reins of the latest Superman movie, and you may prefer less dark tone in your Superman, then you are out of touch or just not moving with the times. Not the case at all for me. Not the case at all for me. I, for one, never actually said that. While it's true, I do believe that Supes generally should be more about the lighter stories, the more joyous, upbeat adventures. That doesn't mean that I am against a dark Superman story if it is done well. Far from it. The problem is not the story tone, at least not entirely, though it can go too far. It's the fact that so many who do want to take Superman down the darker path think that they have to darken the character to do it. Darken the story, fine. Darken the character, not fine. At least not with this fan. A darker story can serve well in the sense that it can help shine the light of the character even more. Superman can go through some horrible trials and tribulations and even mistakes and come through them as a beacon of light because, well, he's Superman. Let's look at the for Superman. What color? He's about being super, no matter what extraordinary menace he faces. Not all the time, of course, but always in the end. Superman as a representation of light triumphant over the darkness is essential to what the character is all about. You don't get any of that with Man of Steel. As Exhibit A, I give you the aforementioned Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. Epic. It is an epic. It is relentlessly downbeat, surprisingly, and even somewhat depressing when you think about it. In any normal circumstance, I might agree with you, my good buddy Steve, my friend, that Moore goes a bit too far. The killing spree he more embarks on is extreme, to say the least. However, if you look at it through the prism of this was truly the end, END, for the Silver Bronze Age Superman mythos, whether we wanted it to be or not, and those who know me well know of my legendary disdain for the abomination that was and ever shall be the Byrne revamp of 1986. There was nothing I, as one fan, could do but mourn the passing of my childhood love, known only as Superman History 1938 to 1986. So, at least if it has to end it brilliantly, as Mr. Moore did. It was never coming back until Moore cleverly resurrected it under an assumed name in his wonderful Supreme series a decade later, of course. Thank goodness for that. But the Silver Bronze Age treasure trove that was the Mort Weisinger, Julius Schwartz eras of, was being shoved out the door. Nothing was going to stop that. Nothing. Not even the all-powerful Superman was going to defeat the wrath of Jeanette Kahn. Fiction can never trump painful reality, no matter how much we sometimes wish it could. Mr. Schwartz, in his infinite wisdom, decided if you got to go, go in style. The result? A bloodbath. By the way, Alan Moore, it's reputed, told Julius Schwartz, if you don't let me do the last Superman story before the Byrne Review, I'll kill you. And he said, jokingly, not wanting to be an accomplice to my own murder, I let him do it. Yeah. I love Julius Schwartz. He was great. Got to meet him once. Great guy. Alan Moore was great back then. Now he's a Looney Tunes, but I still love him. But it was a bloodbath. Not in a gory sense, of course, and it was wonderful art by Kurt Swan, George Perez, and Dave Hunt, but a magnificent bloodbath, a magnificent one. Rather than just shut the door, Moore blew it right off its hinges. This was an ending and a noble, beautiful, if tragic one. One that even I would not have approved of if I didn't know for sure that that was truly goodbye. And on his way out, Moore closed the saga of the world's first and the world's greatest superhero by having him go out the only way befitting one of such awesome power, by his own hand, question mark, and by his own standards, more importantly. He crossed the line that he had set for himself, proving wrong all of those doubters who used to chuckle and laugh at the Man of Tomorrow for being a Boy Scout, as if that was ever a bad thing, or being too perfect or too powerful or too flawless. I suppose it was only fitting that such a being in himself, and what better way of doing it? By breaking his own code for the greater good, an exception to a rule, a justified act, at least to some. Basically, Mr. Mxyzptlk was too dangerous. Mr. Mxyzptlk was turned evil, and he had unlimited power. Superman had no choice but to kill him, and he does. I won't blow it if you ever want to read the story. Sorry if I blew the end of it there. Moore kind of swiped it from an old book called Super Folks. Great stuff. Anyway, Mxyzptlk was too dangerous. But Superman didn't let himself use that as an excuse. So after killing him, which he did, Lois said, "You had to do it. You haven't done anything wrong." To which Superman replied, "Yes, I have. Nobody has the right to kill. Not Mxyzptlk, not you, not Superman." And then he said in big, bold letters, "Especially not Superman." Read that again. This is Superman. It's Alan Moore writing it. Alan Moore. No goody two-shoes, Alan Moore. Wrote a bloodbath of his characters, of the characters being knocked off one after the other. And he's right. Yet Mxyzptlk would have destroyed everything. She says you did nothing wrong, and Superman, even though it's true he had to do it, still think he did something wrong. His own values, he says, "Yes, I have. Nobody has the right to kill. Not Mxyzptlk, not you, not Superman. Especially not Superman." So Superman walked into a gold kryptonite chamber and, odd wink ending notwithstanding, as far as we will ever know, retires and marries Lois. So he took his own powers away and stayed human. Now, we don't know for sure. Well, we think we'll never know because Moore's never going to revisit it. It was a great ending because it was over. As he said at the outset of that story, that wonderful two-part story, he said, the following is an imaginary story. Then he, coyly says, aren't they all? They're all imaginary, buddies. Brilliant story. Great, great message. What does all this mean? To me, if it's good enough for Superman I grew up with, the Superman I grew up with and loved for so long, it's good enough as a standard for all superheroes. Does that mean that you should never do stories about super beings going off the deep end and doing despicable, horrible things? Not at all. Does that mean that you can't do serious stories about Superman crossing the line? No. Moore did. Granted, he had kind of a final word set up, but if Moore can do it, so can other writers. Personally, I do think there's such a thing as a time and a place. And Elseworlds or alternate histories, story about a darker, even not so nice Superman, one in comics format, which is, after all, Superman's natural home, That's perfectly acceptable, even to me, if not particularly desirable. But when in the standard DC universe, gone now but never forgotten, I won't compromise and believe that the Silver Bronze Age edict is valuable and should be followed. When he flies outside of the cozy confines of the comic book landscape and becomes a guest in other mediums, movies, TV, etc., I think, like any polite house guest, Superman should be on his best behavior. I don't expect to accomplish anything here, just to put in my 2 billion cents about the whole Superman should kill debate, which seems to have taken the center stage in fandom discussions of late. And that, if anything, should speak volumes about the phenomenal importance of the character. I'm fairly sure even my friends who disagree on the movie will concede that the character stands atop the mountain in terms of pop culture icons. I believe that he is supposed to be a symbol of eternal optimism and yet hope. And yes, hope. I should say yes, hope, sorry. As I said, but only as lip service in Man of Steel. Hope. In this movie, hope for what? Hope that the guy in the blue wetsuit is not as nasty as the guy with the clunky armor? Hope that the guy in the wetsuit doesn't destroy as much or recklessly endanger as many lives as the nasty spacemen and women who want to kidnap him? Hope that the guy in the wetsuit who can fly fast doesn't throw a gas tanker at anyone, at the enemy, and have it explode and possibly kill dozens? Hope that one set of super powerful alien jerks can be defeated by one alien jerk who may not be such a bad guy. He's just a bit of a cold insensitive. He's just a bit cold and insensitive. Hope that this jackass won't destroy too many expensive satellites just to show how big his codpiece is. Hope that after all of this mindless destruction, disaster porn, and excessive violence, that the right side will win and the guy in the wetsuit won't make a habit of wrapping trucks around phone poles because someone hurts his poor widow feelings? Or perhaps hope that this asshat alien won't kill anyone he damn well pleases whenever he feels like it, even if they do something really evil like giving him a wedgie? That's a lot of hoping going on. That S on his chest may as well be an A, or better yet, a V. So my friends out there who think it's okay for Superman to kill his enemies, well, I don't expect to convince you otherwise. I can only tell you why my Superman doesn't and shouldn't. I guess since 1986, when I said goodbye to the Superman that I cherished the most in comics, to make way for the colder, self-absorbed, less heroic, hard-edged yuppie that John Byrne thought we should be, I guess I never have really gotten him back. And yet, you make the case that I should care what the character who has passed off as Superman does now. Or excuse me, that I should, yeah. You may have a point. If this were just about me, but Superman is about all of us. He's about inspiration and imagination. He's about, as I said before, excuse me, the responsible use of power. And all of those other outdated concepts that made him uncool to some fanboys. Byrne made him cool again to some by making him selfish and arrogant and a bit harsh, in my view. I mean, looking back, it's not as bad, but I don't like it. Later, he made him cooler by getting the crap beat out of him by Doomsday. And I know Byrne didn't do that comic, I know, but it was his continuity, so to speak. And then and getting killed by beating the crap out of Doomsday and then dying, only to come back or come out even cooler, still with longer hair and darker problems to go with his darker adventures and temperament. And he kept getting cooler and cooler, at least to a degree, as time passed, and the world he inhabited, became more and more savage. Times change indeed, and so should we. So say the cynics. Yeah, I'll get right on that. Talk about changing with the times. Soups has sure done that. Well, some guy with a name has anyway. Ever notice that people who say change with the times or hurl that tired old "you're living in the past" barb are really just saying lower your moral expectations and accept depravity? Or, to a less drastic extent, you have to lax your artistic standards to be with it, to be cool. Quite sad. My Superman is long gone. And I have to deal with that. Superman wasn't quite cool enough until the Screw 52 had him running around dressed like Jethro from the Beverly Hillbillies, and even cooler, dressed in armor sans his red trunks because somehow they've been holding him back from the coolness, those trunks. He's been working out. He's been working for over 7 decades. It wasn't cool until the trunks were gone, according to some idiots. Now, he's reached his coolness zenith in the comics. And he'll bang Wonder Woman and swat your head clean off if you give him any crap. Now, how can we make him any cooler? Movies? Yeah, that's the ticket. And he'll be cool because he won't smile and he'll grunt and groan and grimace a lot. He'll kick ass, take names. And he'll throw trucks and cars and have temper tantrums and tell generals it's my way or the highway. And they will obey because, after all, he saved them from the aliens who are even bigger jerks than he is. I guess he's so cool now that he doesn't need all of that messy morality. Now that he just doesn't need to find a way to avoid killing the bad guys. What the hell? Someone gets out of line, snap their full neck, Soupy. Luthor comes around in the next one. Fry his rich ass with your really cool heat vision. Well, it's cool even though it's hot. Anyway, we could trust Super What's-His-Name to protect us as long as we don't piss him off. I mean, he's not such a bad guy. He's easier than Zod and his clan. Just don't dump beer on his head. Hey, he didn't kill the guy. He poured the beer on his head. He just destroyed his livelihood. Yeah. Hope he had a super guy policy in his truck insurance. Destroying a man's way of making a living. Well, not Superman-like. Sure is cool. And in keeping with the standards and practices by the bloodthirsty fools who DC and Warner are aiming their comics and movies at these days, it's just super cool, isn't it? Yeah, it's lovely. Super Cavill killed because it was the easy way out. He didn't have to think. Outthinking opponents isn't cool anymore. Just rip the bastard's head off and be done with it. Because, like so much in our society today, and yeah, even now, it's easier to act like the villains than the heroes. Not to mention way cooler. So Superman kills. Well, the guy in the wetsuit does. Not my Soups, but mine wasn't really ever in the picture here. Nolan, Snyder, Goyer could have done worse than watching Superman versus the Elite before starting this film. Who knows? Maybe they didn't just have an impact, and maybe it didn't have an impact on them. I heard. By the way, that's an animated film I recommend if you love Superman. Again, I am fully aware of the decision. I'll finish up with this. Of the derision, scorn, and ridicule I will receive for this position. And the admission that I am so far removed from Superman that I have no real dog in this hunt won't help matters for me. However, I still live in this world, and I would like to have some hopes as well. Some hope that Superman, the way I perceive him, will come back someday. For never has there been a time when he was more needed, especially now. That's 2013. This is 2020. Even more now. No, I know that's not going to happen. Certainly not in comics, but I could at least have a bit of hope that when Superman is trotted out to the masses, he retains some semblance of his integrity, his dignity, and his dignity. Hope that whether I like the movies or comics or not, that he can be inspiring to young people today, the way he always was to me, at least through my youth. I hope that I could at least say, even if I didn't care for the film, that Superman wasn't disgraced. Superman, at the very least, maintained his core values. Even if I didn't care for the film, I'd like to be able to say that. If they make one, but yeah. But who am I kidding? That just wouldn't be cool. There's that word again. Sorry, but yeah, awesome was taken. And I'll conclude just by saying this was not a story about good versus evil, meaning Man of Steel. It was about lesser of evils. It was about disaster porn. This movie takes the super out of the man and reduces him to just one of the guys. One of the guys who can fly and lift heavy things, but he's not super. Because those aren't the things that were supposed to make him super. Now, he's not special. He's just like everyone else. And if that works for you as Superman, it's up to you. I won't judge you. I know it sounds like it, but I won't. I'm just judging what I see and just speaking for me. I don't have any animosity for you. I have many of my friends that screw me on this. And I love them to death, and I might love you too if I knew you. I just disagree and wish that this debacle wasn't selling. Of course, in hindsight, it didn't do well. But I always knew it would. I always knew it would. After all, Superman doesn't sell anymore. But Bad Blood always does. And that's my 2013 review. I of course, commented on it and accompanied it. But if anyone even bothered to listen, if you did, that's fine. I wanted to get this recorded. And sorry that I'm crappy at reading. This is the first time I've ever read anything like on a live stream or anything. I know not to do it again. That's for sure. But, and sorry if I have not, I did mean to ignore you guys in the chat. I wanted to get it all. I wanted to get it all in there because I knew it would take some time. And if anyone did stay, I appreciate it. Again, and if you didn't, I totally understand. It's me mouthing on. You know, what are you going to do? But I'm proud that, you know, again, I put my buddy Chris to sleep. Well, good, man. You said you needed some sleep, so that's actually, for those who don't tell anyone, I actually did this so I could do that, because he said, "Man, dude, I'm not getting any sleep lately." I said, "Dude, an impromptu stream about Man of Steel just for you. You get all the sleep you need." So, was that Team American World Police? So I didn't. I wanted to get it done, so I didn't look at the chats. I didn't mean to ignore you guys. Anyone who was here, anyone who stuck it out, disagree, agree. It doesn't matter, man. I tell you what, I love you, and I thank you for being here. I just wanted to get this recorded, and I wanted to get it up there, and no one will ever care. But that's okay. As you can see, this is a cover to the comic I was talking about earlier. This was the Swan song, if you will. No pun for Kurt Swan. They're the great Superman artist. Alan Moore's final story of the Superman I love, from 1986. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, man. Dude, I put myself to sleep, brother. And I'm crappy at reading these things. I'll get better at it, but I read it all. And yes, I did editorialize my own fucking review, because it's 7 years later. I had to revamp. I hate the movie. Look, in hindsight, it doesn't feel so bad, the movie. I don't like it, but I'm not as passionate as I was. Well, I appreciate that, my friends. Thank you. I appreciate it. I've written a lot, but never that much. And just to let you and all of you know, the next one I do like this, I might do it Friday. I'm going to be doing, I've got some other things planned. I hope to come on, like my good buddy Latino Slant, by the way. RR's here. Great to see you, my friend. My good buddy Latino Slant is this. Anyone here who has not, go to Latino Slant's page and please subscribe to his great new channel. He's a good friend of mine, and he of like a good new friend, and just met him on. We're now fellow YouTube buddies. We're going to be on each other's shows, I hope, and talking and hanging out, and I look forward to that. RR, thank you so much. Oh man, you guys don't have to say that. I know I suck, but it's cool of you to say that. But a few things planned, and again, I hope to join my buddy Paulie soon. But I will. Let's see, a couple things coming up. I'm going to keep doing comic book breakdown shows and comic book. The next, I don't have a partner for the next one I want to do. Because I don't know anyone who knows. It's one of those things. There are a couple of things that I love that I have other friends who like, but as far as them, they want to take it down piece to piece, like Steve and I did for the Coming of Galactus Fantastic Four saga last week, and then Justice the week before that. My next one is what, in my opinion, is one of the greatest comic books ever in the history of superheroes. It's going to be sort of a recommendation and breakdown show. It's the 25th anniversary of what, in my opinion, is one of the greatest comic books of all time, that I love dearly. And I will be talking about that. And, of course, it's called Kurt Busiek's Astro City. It's a masterpiece, many of them. It's at its 25th anniversary. And I don't really know anyone that knows it well enough to break it down with me, so I'll probably be doing it. I may just do it by myself on a video Friday. I'm going to try to maybe do a live stream tomorrow night, an open stream geek thing, because that will be show number 6 of my live stream, because I want number 7. I'm reserving number 7. There's a fellow member of the Fandom Menace that I've become friends with that loves the classic series, classic great science fiction series, Blake 7. It is a great chap. Some of you may have heard of him. He's Problem Being. And we have agreed to, I can't find anyone who knows the show like I do, so I'm having to really have someone to bounce off of with it. So I'm hoping to use episode 7, which if hopefully Saturday. It depends. He lives across the pond. Hopefully we can hook up, and we'll do a show about the great, the brilliant, the masterpiece, late 70s, early 80s British science fiction series Blake 7. And I want to use Blake's episode 7 for that. I wanted to use episode 6 as a prisoner show, but that's all being taken care of. So I guess, I should let you guys go, man. You guys have been way too kind. I know it was a bore fest. I wanted to get that thing recorded. And I want to say to anyone, as I did a little bit at the outset, anyone who does happen to listen to this on the recorded later, anyone who wants to contact me, you can go to Twitter. Look for Mike Alonzo on Twitter or Mike Alonzo on Facebook. There's a link on my page, on my YouTube page to that. And if you do find me on YouTube, on Facebook, please join my Clobberin Times Baxter Building Basement Facebook group. We have a lot of fun in there. You could post any geek stuff you want there, of course. And but anyone who's just new popping in, and whether you agree on Man of Steel or not, or you hate me calling it Man of Steel, you think I'm a jackass full of shit, that's all cool. Look, you can't hate me more than I hate myself. I have severe self-loathing issues, but we won't go into that. So you can't insult me. You can't pick on me. I mean, you can, and actually, the thing is, I don't think it's funny. But especially when it's in good friend and good humor. But if it's nasty and all that kind of stuff and it makes you feel better, that's okay too. Anyone who has not read Astro City, though, I'm going to do a lot of recommending of it. I love it. It's brilliant. And so I hope anyone who does catch this on a redo. This was done in, like I said, it was done in 2013. I've amended some of it, but I wanted to read. I have not read it, by the way, in many years. So I just did it cold today. And for a while, Facebook had lost it, and I couldn't find it, and I thought it was gone. So I promise not to do any more long, boring-ass reading things. But, I didn't think it would take this long either. I knew it was a long one. And at the time, some friends really liked it, because a lot of us did not like the movie. But if you did, look, that's cool. So... all the covers of Astro City, Paulie, are by the great Alex Ross, who did, of course, as you know, did Justice. His great work. The interiors by the excellent Brent Anderson. That character, of course, is basically, for all intents and purposes, Superman. I'm going to talk in depth about Astro City. It is, I mean, if you are into superhero comics and you never read Astro City, I envy you, because, man, if you try it and it does touch your fancy, you're in for a lot of great reading. It might not be your thing. It is mine. I love a lot of Alan Moore's work, and I love Watchmen and things like that. To me, this is brilliant. As brilliant as Alan Moore's stuff, without deconstructing the superhero, using superhero archetypes and idioms. Sorry, you get me started on Astro City, I can't stop, so I will stop. But I want to thank you all again for being here. You're all fantastic. Please go check out my friend Paulie's channel, Latino Slant. Sorry, man, I can't speak today. He is an awesome dude. Charles Macreth, my great friend, thank you for being here. Jobber, thank you for popping in. RR, another wonderful new friend of the channel, thank you so much for being here. My good friend Chris Ransom, thank you for putting up with me, man. And I'm glad you got some sleep, my brother. And I will hopefully see you at work soon, buddy. Thanks again. And I'll see you all at the next one. If I don't do an open, I might do an open show Thursday night and do an Astro City video probably Friday. So, which will be a live stream like this where I talk about it for a couple hours. But yeah, I don't know. In fact, I might not do. Yeah, I'll do a Friday daytime. Number 6 will be Astro City, and instead of doing one tomorrow night, because I'll be dead exhausted from work anyway. Farewell, my friends. It's so weird not to have outros. But as the master said on one of my favorite Doctor Who episodes, Castrovelva, farewell, my friends. Farewell forever. Later, gang.